Thank you for joining our webinar for this month, where I'm joined with Perry. This is pretty easy, right? Uh, yeah, Discord makes it very easy to,
Theoretically,
yeah.
yeah. Sure.
Hopefully it was easy for you. Thank you so much for agreeing to this. And maybe just to get started, do you want to introduce yourself? I feel like most of the audience knows who you are, but just in case they don't.
Well, sure. Hello, I am Perry Romanowski. I've been a chemist since early '90s, so a little
Long time.
while. I formulated hair care and skincare products as my career. I first got a degree in chemistry, and then the first job out of school that I got was a formulation chemist. I worked on brands like VO5, Tresemme, Nexus, St. Ives, and even some household products. But primarily, my work has been on shampoos and conditioners. I was formulating for about 17 years, I think I worked there, and then I started a website, Chemist Corner, and have been writing about cosmetic formulating and teaching people how to formulate cosmetics or how the cosmetic industry works. But that's pretty much what I've been up to, and I've been doing that. Chemist Corner I started in 2009, so 11 years of that. And before that, I started the Beauty Brains, which was 2007, I think, 2006. Actually, 2006 we started the Beauty Brains. We started doing a podcast in about 2012 and have kept that up too.
So the OG and the SciComm beauty space.
Yeah, way early.
Just so everyone who's watching knows, if you go into the webinar chat channel, so while you're watching this, you can also be in a channel on Discord. So if you guys have questions that you would like me to ask Perry directly, then put your questions in the webinar chat, and then I'll ask these questions. Are you okay with the fireside webinar? Uh, I guess how we're doing it is me asking you questions.
Format?
Format. That's the question.
Yeah, yes, yes.
The
Yeah, that works fine. Yeah.
okay. Well, I'm
I will. I, I do just want to point out. I didn't know where to put it, but I put in the career hashtag, or I don't know what you call them, but in the career discussion thing, I put a link. If you want to click on that link and sign up, there's a 4-part course on becoming a cosmetic chemist. So feel free anybody to go sign up. It's free to do that. So
and
yeah, that's in the hashtag cosmetics career.
so I'm just right now on one of your really great blog posts, How to Become a Cosmetic Chemist. And I'm going to ask you questions directly from there because I feel like it makes my job easy. You've already laid out the
Sure.
discussion. And then again, if anyone has additional questions, then by all means, stick it in the webinar chat channel. But my first question would be, I guess, how does one become actually, maybe before that, what is a cosmetic chemist or scientist? I feel like defining what that is would probably be a good place to start before we start to how to become a cosmetic scientist.
It's a great question. You see online a lot of people claiming that they're cosmetic chemists, cosmetic scientists, formulators. It's a lot of words there. I was a cosmetic chemist, or am a cosmetic chemist, and implicit in the cosmetic chemist is the definition that the Society of Cosmetic Chemists use. The requirements to become a member of the Society of Cosmetic Chemists, a full member, it does require a, a college degree in some sort of science area. Most people who are cosmetic chemists have degrees, either a 4-year degree in chemistry or chemical engineering. Some people also have degrees in something like biology. I've worked with a cosmetic chemist who had a degree in physics. There's a lot of overlap in those natural sciences. But you need that. And if you don't have a degree like that, then you can also become a cosmetic chemist through work experience. You get an associate's degree, say something like chemistry or basic science, and then you work in the industry for 5 or 10 years on formulating, and then you can qualify to become a cosmetic chemist. Uh, So a cosmetic chemist is a person who works in the cosmetic industry, primarily works on creating products. And creating products, there's many facets of that. The work that I did was formulating, and that formulating is essentially coming up with the recipes for the products that you put together. I call them recipes, we call them formulas, and it's just finding what are the raw materials that you use and what are the percentages and the ratios of those raw materials. As a cosmetic chemist, you do a whole bunch of things. You take the work, you interface with the marketing people to come up with the product ideas. You put together the prototypes, you do the testing, you shepherd the formula from the lab all the way up to manufacturing, and you are involved in troubleshooting a lot of the manufacturing problems. That is pretty much what a cosmetic chemist does. So there's aspects of formulating, there's aspects of testing, there's aspects of marketing. So there is really a whole lot of things that you do. But that's how I would define cosmetic chemists.
And you briefly went through the education required to become a cosmetic chemist, but I know a lot of people wonder, like, what's the minimum amount of education you need? Like, can you become a cosmetic scientist or chemist with just a bachelor's? Do you need a bachelor's? Do you necessarily need to go all the way to a PhD to become a cosmetic chemist? So, what kind of education is required to actually have a title, I guess, but also get a job?
Well, that's a great question. I would say the minimum education that you need to get a standard cosmetic chemist job would be a bachelor's degree in some sort of science, usually chemistry or chemical engineering. Those are the best two options to choose if you want to have your increase your chances of getting a job in the industry. Like I said, people with biology degrees, physics degrees, can also get jobs, but really, when a company is looking to hire somebody, they're looking for somebody with the word chemist in their degree. I will say that you can also start out, if you want to get an associate's degree in something like chemistry or science, then you might get hired on as a technician. And a technician is it's the most entry level of jobs, but essentially a technician will work for a chemist. So the chemist is at their desk putting together what they think are formulas, and they put together 10 different formulas on paper. Then they hand that paper to the technician, and the technician is the one who actually goes and gets all the raw materials, measures things out, pours them together, and mixes it. And then they come and bring the results to the chemist. So if you wanted to get started with a job like that, you could get an associate's degree in chemistry. But most of the people who work in the cosmetic industry simply have 4-year degrees in chemistry or chemical engineering. There are a number of programs out there where you could get a master's degree. University of Cincinnati or Fairleigh Dickinson University have pretty well-known industry degree programs. But the reality is, most people who are in the cosmetic industry right now don't have master's degrees. Now, some people do have, a good number of people do have master's degrees, but it's typically in a that's not directly tied to the cosmetic industry. You might get a master's degree in chemistry or material science or polymer science, and then get into the cosmetic industry. But and as far as PhD goes, there are some PhDs in the cosmetic industry, but it's a very small percentage. The vast majority of people simply have 4-year degrees in chemistry, and that qualifies you to become a cosmetic chemist.
And I guess the question whether or not you're going to pursue something like a PhD depends on whether or not you want to do research, if you want to be on that side of the industry, like in ingredient development kind of thing, versus do you want to formulate products. And so I guess this kind of ties into my next question. And your third tip on your blog was researching the cosmetics industry and also the types of jobs out there. So, what suggestions would you give to people who are going to actually start researching the cosmetic industry?
It's funny. I think when I wrote that, that was way in the early the phases of the internet. I mean, early. I mean, back
Still
2008,
relevant.
2009. Yeah, no, but things have really changed. When I first got out of college, the way that a person got a job was that you looked in the newspaper. There were lots of job wanted or help wanted ads in the newspaper. Then you look for. In fact, the reason I became a chemist, I started out college in the biology area, and I was studying biology. And I only took biology because I liked animals. I still like animals. But when I got to my senior year, I started looking at the job sections, and there might have been one or two listings for biology, but there were dozens of listings for chemists. So chemists were employed in all kinds of areas, or biology, unless you were going to go get a PhD and become a professor or some sort of in the field researcher, there weren't a lot of jobs. And so when I went to school, I went to DePaul University, and I had to be a biology major. I was going to be a chemistry minor anyway. And I looked at it, I just needed a few more classes to get a chemistry degree. So I just took an extra year and got a degree in chemistry and then minored only in biology. And that made me, applicable to all the other jobs that were out there in chemistry. So looking in the newspaper used to be the way. Now online searches, going through something like LinkedIn or Indeed, or is Monster still around? Monster.com for jobs. There are a lot of job searching things now. You can just, in fact, you can go on Google and do searches for jobs. And so there's just a lot more possibility for you to find these jobs. Um, but when you're starting out, I think the most important thing to do is to research the industry. And you can research the industry by, Chemist Corner, we've written a lot of things about the big companies there, but especially take a look at the big companies, where they're located, what their brands are, because the industry has these really big companies where they hire a lot of people. Then they have a ton of these small companies that also hire a lot of people. And in your area, especially if you want to stick around where you're living, you're probably going to have to look for a job in one of the smaller companies, contract manufacturers, or even the raw material suppliers. And they all hire chemists. A lot of times when you first come on, you might be hired on as a technician. I was kind of lucky, I think, getting hired on as a cosmetic chemist right out of college. A lot of people now are hired on as technicians, and then you sort of build your way up in your career. But do your research on finding first the companies. Happy.com. If there was a chat function on this, I would type happi.com. Every year they do a list of the 50 biggest companies in the cosmetic industry, and I'd encourage you go take a look at there. Next thing that I think is really important for you to do is to build your online profile and start that with LinkedIn. Put together a LinkedIn profile and then look on there and start connecting with people who list their jobs as cosmetic chemists. Because the number one way that you get a job in the industry is that you know somebody. You know somebody who can tell you about jobs. It's really difficult to go in cold, and if you're applying with your resume on top of everybody else's resume, it's just a lot harder. Most people are going to know somebody. And in fact, a lot of times there's a lot of job shifting in the industry. And the company I worked for, Alberto Culver, was bought out by Unilever, and Unilever eventually shut down that company in Chicago. And all of the people who were chemists in Chicago, they were almost all able to find jobs around this area, and it was mainly because of their connections with everybody that they knew in the industry. And that was all known mostly through the Society of Cosmetic Chemists, but we can get into that kind of thing in a bit. But that would be how I would go about researching the industry.
Now, you mentioned at the start that most university programs aren't specialized to cosmetic science. It's really hard to find a specialized program. Well, maybe not that hard. There are more now. Do people
Far more
need to
now, yeah.
go and get a specialized program? Is it preferable if they were to do it? Because typically it's either a master's or some sort of online program, and there are quite a few, for example, from the SES. Is that something that brands or companies prefer for their prospective employees to have this sort of additional specialized training, or do sometimes brands, or sorry, companies prefer to train the chemists themselves? And somebody might be wondering, like,
I
I only
think
have a chemistry degree, and then how am I ever going to learn all this stuff? I didn't learn about it in school. You have said that companies will train. Anyways, what do you think?
yeah, no, I think first the number one thing that you need to get into the industry is a degree in something like chemistry or chemical engineering. Um, like you said, there are companies that want to train people. They'll specifically take chemical engineers. I know L'Oreal does this. They specifically will take chemical engineers, and then they have their own training program that turns you into a cosmetic chemist. So if you had a master's degree or something, it's a nice to have, but a company like that doesn't care much. Now, if you get hired on at a contract manufacturer, they would love it if you had, a master's degree in a cosmetic science program or pharmaceutical program, or at the very least had gone through something like the program put together, the distance learning program put together by the Society of Cosmetic Scientists out in the UK, which is a great overview for that. In fact, I put together the course I have, Practical Cosmetic Formulating, specifically targeted at people with science backgrounds who are just want to get their feet wet in the industry, and that gives you a basic background of the things that they don't really teach you in college, because the reality is you don't learn anything about becoming a cosmetic chemist by the chemistry that you learn in college. College chemistry is great for theoretical backgrounds, and it's probably really good if you wanted to learn how to develop molecules and work for a raw material supplier to synthesize ingredients. It's helpful for that. But as far as formulating and putting things together, it's not really helpful for that specific skill set. That is something you have to learn on your own. Now, I learned it on the job. Essentially, you're a chemist. Here's the formula. Go ahead, put that together. And then over the years, I had to learn what do these raw materials do? When do I use this? How much do I use? And that was all learned just through the experience of doing that. Nowadays, you can learn a lot of that stuff that wasn't available when I was getting into the industry, but you could learn a lot of that stuff online. There are some interesting programs online. There's lots of them. You can just stumble on them. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of nonsense online because they're put together by people who don't really have a science background, and a lot of people who have learned from people who didn't know what they were talking about, but they knew how to do social media and other skills that can get you attention online. So it's hard to know what's good online, what's not good online. I would say certainly something like the SCS program, which is put out by the Society of Cosmetic Scientists in the UK, is probably one of the best ones out there. And of course, university programs are great too. But as far as being useful in your career, yes, it's going to be useful. It'll make you stand out in the pile of resumes. But as far as it helping you do your job better, getting an advanced degree, I don't think it really helps that much in doing your job better, or even necessarily in advancing in your career. And maybe we'll talk a little bit later about tips for advancing in your career. But one of the quick tips I'll tell you is you'll be depressed to learn that getting smarter and smarter about formulating and cosmetic chemistry doesn't necessarily help you get farther along in your career.
Sad.
It is sad.
Well, and just so everyone watching knows, IFSCC, is that the right acronym? They have a list of online courses, diplomas, including the master's program from the the University of Cincinnati. They now have it in an online format. So if you want a list, the IFSCC has a list. Now we have a few questions from. Oh wow. I don't know how you just did that.
Oh, sorry.
Famous cosmetic.
In case anybody doesn't know. Actually, I used to have a button that I wore around when I first started, I had my lab coat, and, I like to wear flair. So I had a button on there that said famous cosmetic chemist.
Most famous according to Google, I hear.
Just according to Google.
So we had a few questions come up in the webinar chat. One is from Papikoya. I'm so sorry, I probably said your name wrong, but they said, I'm finishing a PhD in med chem. Will I be overqualified? For which positions can I aim to get jobs? And then someone else had a question. Nadina had a question along the same lines. I have a PhD in organic chemistry and thought about the SCS diploma on cosmetic science. Is this beneficial or not necessary? I really try to gain more knowledge on formulations, but this is hard when this is not part of your daily job.
I think as far as whether it's beneficial or not, I will say if you have a chemistry background and you studied at university and that's your experience, it absolutely is worthwhile. Um, because that course, and I have never gone through the whole thing myself, although I'm familiar with a lot of the material there. But that course certainly gives you a great overview about what's important for cosmetic formula. Now, as far as the idea of being overqualified, the reality is you will be overqualified for jobs like a technician. You might be overqualified even for a cosmetic chemist. So there's the way it goes is there's cosmetic chemist, there's a research chemist, and then a senior chemist. Typically, a PhD with no experience in formulating or the cosmetic industry, you might come on as a research chemist just because you have the PhD. But you do you probably educate yourself out of, the starting entry level chemist, which, that's probably not what you want. One of the suggestions that I have, if you do want to get advanced degrees for people who aren't there yet, a great thing to do is get your undergrad, then go work for a company, and then that company will help to pay for your advanced schooling. And so that's a great way, especially if you're going to get a master's degree. That's a great way to do it. A lot of people that go through the online University of Cincinnati program courses, a lot of people are paid for by the company. Their company pays for them to go through that. One of the things you have to worry about then is then you're sort of tied to your company for a certain amount of time. But if you like your company and if they're paying for your schooling, why wouldn't you like them? But that's a really a great strategy to do if money is a consideration. If it's not, don't sweat it. You can go right through it.
Now, Jane from Making Skincare mentioned that in at least the UK, but I think across Europe, the SCS diploma program is highly sought after by brands just because it gives you that specialized knowledge. I don't know if it's as sought after in North America, but
I will tell you that in North America, it's not really a thing that companies look at much. But certainly in the EU and even Australia, it'll get down to there. There's a connection there. But I would say, but in North America, it's not. I don't actually know of anybody who I had worked with who had gone through it.
So there are a variety of different organizations that people who want to be involved in the cosmetics industry or are involved in the cosmetics industry can be a part of to build a network. And as you mentioned before, building networks lead to potentially more job opportunities. So what are these networks? How can people get involved with them? Or actually, what would be the top networks you would suggest people get involved with, or top trade shows or whatever?
As far as the cosmetic industry goes, the best organization to get involved with is the Society of Cosmetic Chemists. Their membership is about 5,000. We have their chapters throughout the United States and Canada. There's a chapter in Ontario. There's one for Quebec. But throughout the United States, the Midwest, the South, Florida, California, New York, you can find a local chapter, and all of the chapters are there's 18 or 19 chapters that are for North America, and excluding Mexico, but those would be part of the SCC, which is based in New York. I would highly encourage you to get involved with your local chapter. Most of the chapters are going to have meetings uh, probably about 7 times a year. These usually will go monthly, but then you take the summers off and things. And of course, this is back in the day when people used to get together for dinner meetings and such. But a lot of things are just online now. The New York SCC puts out a lot of online programs. And in fact, I'm doing a talk for them on January 28th coming up. I'll post info about that when I get that. But I would recommend first getting involved with those because and going to those meetings and meeting people, those key networking opportunities are a good way to meet people face to face. Nowadays, meeting people online is great. In fact, I met Jen originally online, I think, and then I think I was in Toronto, and maybe we saw each other there, or maybe the first time we saw each other was at the Suppliers Day. But
Something
um,
like that.
yeah, no, often you can meet people online, but really that can only go so far. Meeting people face to face is probably better. Society of Cosmetic Chemists, there's a lot of the trade shows that are helpful. Certainly, Suppliers Day in New York, which happens in May. In cosmetics, if you're in Europe, in cosmetics happens, I think, in April every year, and so that's a great one to find. And these trade shows essentially are places where the suppliers of the cosmetic industry will go and they'll show their products. So mostly that's all the raw material suppliers. And so you'll learn all the raw material companies and you'll see what products are they're trying to get cosmetic chemists to buy. There's also packaging companies and equipment manufacturers. And so if you wanted to get a good sense of the entire industry, tough to beat the New York Suppliers Day. Now there are other ones. California has a Suppliers Day every other year. Chicago has a Suppliers Day every other year. Out in Texas and Dallas, they have one every other year. And there are smaller ones throughout the industry. But if you have the opportunity to go to one of these, I would certainly recommend you doing that. And if you have a chance to go to In Cosmetics, Reed, I think they are Reed, REED. They have a whole list of these different programs that they put on throughout the whole world. So depending on where you are, there probably is a cosmetics trade show for you to go. You want to go there, you want to check out the companies, talk to people. One of the things you might do, I think people will still do this, is hand out business cards and connections and collect business cards and things. And that kind of networking will get you connected to people who will eventually may be able to help you find jobs or get recommendations for upcoming jobs. So those would be my recommendations. Now, online, of course, as I mentioned, LinkedIn. Be sure to set up your own LinkedIn profile. And LinkedIn has all kinds of opportunities to interact with people through text mostly. I know Jen, through the Echo Well, she has her own page where discussions happen there. The Society of Cosmetic Chemists has their page. If I were a better online marketer, I'd have my own page for Chemist Corner, but I just Chemist Corner, actually, we have a forum, which the Chemist Corner forum, you can go there, and there are a lot of cosmetic chemists there who just talk about, solving formulation issues. And those are people from around the world. So, being active on things like that, online things like that, asking questions, remaining humble, and trying to ignore the people who get a little bit cantankerous and unfriendly, because that's how the online world is. You got to shake that kinds of stuff off. Try not to take it all personally, but it's a great way to build a network and build relationships, which could eventually lead to you having a job in the industry.
Yeah, and I just want to add something that I've done a lot, just along your suggestions, is like just reach out to people. If especially somebody has a career that you see yourself having in the future or you would like to, just like reach out and ask them. You'd be surprised with how nice people are and willing to help when you say that, oh, I would like to be a cosmetic chemist. In my experience, most people are really happy to help. We had a, you would agree with that statement, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
uh, so I had a question from Mira who's asked, would a bachelor's of pharmacy degree be useful to pursue a career in the cosmetics industry?
I think so. There's a lot of overlap there, especially you kind of learn formulating there. And a lot of the cosmetic science advanced programs are run through university pharmacy schools. And so yeah, I would say so. That would certainly qualify.
And then Papikoya asks again, so Perry named different positions: technician, formulator, research chemist, senior chemist, etc. What are the differences and are there more options? So I guess this kind of leads into deciding on the type of job you want to work in the cosmetics industry.
Sure. Well, let me just give you kind of an overview there. So the real entry level is the technician. And the lab technician is somebody who kind of uh, does the work for the chemist. That's the only way I can say it. When I was working, we hired technicians were mostly hired from temporary agencies. So when a project got particularly busy and we needed more help, we would work with a temp agency who would send us chemists, and those chemists would be technicians. They were paid the obscenely low level, I think, of about $10 an hour, which I I think our company paid the temp agency about $20 an hour, and of that they split it half and half with the temp. So it's a terrible pay job. However, it does get you in and it gives you experience. But there are also full-time technicians who get hired on. But your job as a technician is going to be essentially doing tasks for the cosmetic chemist, and that'll involve following recipes, putting things together, conducting tests. One of the tests that you have to do a lot in formulating is stability testing, and stability testing involves running viscometer readings on dozens of samples, running pH readings on dozens of samples, and so you sort of it's honestly, it gets to be kind of mindless work. But it can also be interesting, and you can learn a lot as a technician. The next level up from a technician, I would say, is a chemist. And most people, you can either start at the technician level or the chemist level. But the cosmetic chemist, if you're in the realm of formulating, I'm going to go through the assumption that these are all formulators, but I will branch off in after I go through that. But the level of cosmetic chemist is that you would use typically you work for a senior chemist, or you might work for a manager, and you'll get put on a specific project, and the projects would be something like take our current formula and substitute out one fragrance and put in a different fragrance. That's the reality about formulating in the cosmetic industry. A lot of times you're taking existing formulas and you're adapting them to some new project, or you're replacing a supplier of one raw material with a supplier who has the same raw material, but your purchasing department has figured out it's a lot cheaper to do that. So you'll get into the job of a cosmetic chemist, and you'll start to wonder, why did I have to take advanced PChem to do partial differential equations when all I'm doing is taking this out and that? The reality is all of the chemistry and stuff you did in college is a lot more difficult than anything you would do as a cosmetic chemist. That's the entry level. Now, once you get to like research chemist, which would be the next level up, you could get put on projects yourself. You might get put on a brand, and then you're the Tresemme chemist. Now, I started on say I was the Tresemme shampoo and conditioner chemist. We also had a Tresemme styling products, or a Tresemme salon product people. So that would be like the research chemist gets put on some aspect of a brand. Next up from that is the senior chemist, and really senior chemists and research chemists, there isn't a huge difference in responsibilities, but there is a pay gap, of course. There's a significant pay gap. And you've had experience, presumably as a senior chemist, you've had experience with different types of formulas, hair care, maybe skin care, if your company has that, and you can kind of go up from there. Once you get that, senior chemist is probably the top level as far as formulators go until you're going to get into the level of management. Management is you're a project leader, you might be a group leader, you might be a director, and then ultimately a VP and maybe a VP of R&D. That's one track you take. Now that's the formulating end. There are other aspects that you can take. Maybe you're in the process engineering department, and those same levels all have complementary levels in process engineering, but process engineering is sort of an interface between the manufacturer of, the 3,000 gallon tank of shampoo and the chemist who's doing a 500 milliliter beaker. As you have to be the person who can take it from that 500 milliliter beaker and scale it up to that 3,000 gallon batch. In some companies, you as a cosmetic chemist, you've got to do all of that. But when you hire a process engineer, the engineer is going to be involved in getting that from the lab to the manufacturing. They're also involved in setting up manufacturing facilities around the world. So if you like traveling and you like working late hours for under specific time crunches, process engineering is a great way to do that. Other jobs might be quality control, quality assurance, and this involves running tests on incoming raw materials or outgoing products. And then it may also involve troubleshooting. This is one of the things that happens when you're creating products. Say, we would have a 3,000 gallon of a body wash, and say somebody put in the wrong fragrance. Sometimes that happens. And so it's supposed to smell like strawberries, but we accidentally put the apple fragrance in here. And, because it's hard to keep track of them. Now, you as the purist, you'll say, oh, you should just dump that out. Of course, no manufacturing doesn't want to dump anything out. So they'll ask you to, hey, can you fix this batch for us? And sometimes you could just, if you dump in enough fragrance, you could cover the other fragrance. Maybe that works. Or maybe you blend off that batch with a good batch, and so it meets the specifications. But if you're involved in the quality control aspects of things, you might have to do stuff like that. But those are the three main areas. Now, there's the regulatory chemists, there's the claims development chemists, but there's a whole range of things where you might use your job as a cosmetic chemist. But those are really the three main ones.
And so for people looking to progress through their career from a technician to wherever they want to see themselves, do you have any tips for them?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, the number one thing to know is that being smart is not really a big advantage. Or being in corporate America, if you are under the impression that, oh, if I just learn more and learn more and learn more, I'm going to advance and advance and advance. And that's not really, that's great to do. And you should learn everything you can and become as educated as you can. And it will be beneficial, no doubt, in doing your job. But as far as advancing in your career, one of the number one things I would suggest is learn the soft skills, the people interaction skills. Get along with people, even people you don't like. You should learn to get along with them. The other thing I will suggest is that people don't really care about you. That's just the reality. Everybody cares about themselves. And so when you are meeting people and you're networking with people, just keep that in mind that people do care about you and people are friendly. But mostly people, if you go into it with the attitude of how can I help the person that I'm talking to, how can I be useful to you? That's a much better strategy than going up to somebody the first time you meet them and saying, oh, I want this, I want that. How can you help me? People might be nice to you, but they certainly aren't going to uh, find that appealing, and it's certainly not the kind of thing that's going to help advance your career. When you're in a job, when you've landed the job and you want to advance, now certainly learning stuff is good, but become known as a person who is easy to get along with and a person who does what they say they're going to do. Don't ever overpromise something that you don't deliver. It's better to underpromise and overdeliver than the opposite. I mean, a lot of these are the standard platitudes that you might hear, but it's the reality is the smartest people don't advance in a career. The people that advance best in a career are the people that get along with other people, and you become somebody that people want to work with. Um, try to always make your boss look good, and the people that are below you or that you work with, try to make sure everybody has nice things to say about you. You can advance in the world by being a jerk and a bit of an a-hole, and as our outgoing president has demonstrated, you don't have to be a good person to get ahead, but it's a lot easier to get ahead uh, if you get along with people.
We had another question from Chloe who asked, how valuable is business experience slash education in cosmetic careers? I'm currently a chemistry undergrad with an interest in product development consulting in the future.
Yeah, I think it's good to learn about business. The reality about the cosmetic industry is that the cosmetic industry is pretty much run by marketing departments. There are some industries that are run by the technology people. I would say like the computer industry is run by tech, or maybe even the pharmaceutical industry is run by tech. But the beauty industry is really run by the marketing people. Market research departments will interview consumers, and the consumers are really the ones that are telling companies what products should they launch. Um, if you look at the things that Procter and Gamble does or Unilever does, all of the things that they do, they optimize it to maximize the number of things that people are going to like, and that's all done through their marketing departments. It's very rare. It's in fact, it almost never happens that there is a discovery made in the lab that gets, that then gets turned into a product that is just amazing. Because the thing is, there aren't a lot of new discoveries in the cosmetic industry. If you look at the products 20 years ago to the products now, there's essentially no difference. The biggest difference, I would say, is the clean beauty or the natural beauty movement, which has gotten people to remove things derived from petrochemicals, and it made you move into non-standard preservative systems and other things that just quite frankly, these things don't work as well. So I would say that the stuff we used 20 years ago probably works a bit better than the stuff we use now. That's not to say that there haven't been some incremental advances in things. Raw material companies come out with new materials every year, and I think especially some things like polymeric emulsifiers are there's a lot of great stuff there, and that maybe that'll even get better. But for functional ingredients and delivering benefits to consumers, not a lot has changed. And you're in an industry where the technology isn't changing that much. The way that you're going to create a successful product is through your marketing story. And there are lots of stories to be told, and all of them haven't been told. Although it's to me they all have been told. But I don't understand how a brand like Drunk Elephant can essentially offer nothing new as far as technology goes, but they offered a new story. And fast forward 5 years, now they're bought by Shiseido for hundreds of millions of dollars, created with products that aren't any different than anybody else could have made. But their marketing story was unique, and when the technology in a field isn't advancing, the only thing that becomes innovation is marketing stories.
Along the lines, Ishani asked, how can one have an experience in business educations and how can one gain business experience? If this is something that's helpful, how would somebody gain that business experience?
You know, just getting a job in the industry is great, but I would say nowadays, right now, this is like the golden age of people who want to get into the cosmetic industry because there's nothing stopping you from, creating your own brand online. You don't even have to have products. You can create a following online and then launch products later. In fact, a lot of these companies start out. I'm an Instagram account, or I've got a Twitter following, or I have a YouTube channel. They build an audience, and then once you build that audience, you can start delivering products to them. Uh, one of the, I mean, one of the strategies that people use is they develop an email list. They send surveys to their people on their email list and say, what do you want us to make? And it's that sort of free customer research that you never used to be able to have before, but now you can get it. Just you build a following and you learn from them that. Now, if you're specifically in the beauty area, check out what's successful on Amazon. Amazon is telling you what the best sellers are, and you look at that. What those products? Why are they successful? Why? Because products that are successful are products that are solving a problem. And if you can solve the problem in your own unique way, like I say, it's not going to be a technology thing. You're probably not going to develop the next breakthrough cosmetic, even though lots of people say they do. But there hasn't been a breakthrough cosmetic in decades. There just hasn't, because a lot of the problems, quite frankly, they're already solved. At least the chemical strategy to that. Now there might be some new strategies. I don't know, micro machines. Maybe it's some nano machines or something. Maybe that'll be the future. But I think as far as chemistry goes and new materials, it's an iterative process that makes a little bit of a difference. But you still need a good marketing story. So start online, learn what works online as far as getting the business sense of that, and follow successful brands and see what they're doing.
Some industry publications also maybe make it easy to keep an eye on trends. You can follow someone, or a magazine like Cosmetics and Toiletries, or Happy Magazine, or there are lots of others, and perhaps those could be
Yeah,
helpful.
cosmetics design publishes stuff. Yeah, there's lots of resources there.
This
Actually,
next,
that link I put in the careers, you sign up there. I haven't quite finished it, but I'm working on a report which just lists all of my favorite online sources for cosmetic news. So look for that.
this next question is from Katie, who asks, do microbiology careers in cosmetic science deal only with testing, or is there a formulation aspect?
There is a formulation aspect. You're primarily going to be doing testing, but when a formulator is putting together a product and they're looking at what preservative system they should use, they're going to go to their microbiologist and get advice from them. So, as a microbiologist, it's helpful, certainly helpful, to learn about formulating and learn about preservative interactions with the different raw materials. There are some preservatives that might be rendered ineffective by being put inside, in formulas with other types of ingredients. So you as the microbiologist, you should learn that kinds of things.
Do you think with the trend of uh, microbiome friendly products, that could be an avenue also for microbiologists?
Certainly, that is an area that's getting a lot of press now, and that could develop in the future. And maybe even like things like stem cell raw materials and things. Personally, I think those things are really far away from actually being anything more than marketing stories. But that is certainly an area that is emerging as a developing one in the industry. And I could be a little too cynical here, but I've been in the once you're in the industry long enough, you tend to get a little bit more skeptical about newly developed things.
This next question is from Nini? Nina? I'm so sorry. I probably said your name wrong. Hello, Perry. My name is. Oh, gosh, Bella. Sorry.
Uh,
I'm sorry. I'm from Indonesia currently, and I'm working on cosmetic manufacturers for about 2 years as a cosmetic formulator. I'm planning to pursue my master's degree in cosmetic science in the future. Also, I have interest in product development, so I really need your kind advice. Do I necessarily need this master's degree to support my future career in product development, or should I continue my career as a cosmetic chemist after I graduate with my master's degree? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think as far as what you're going to learn, learning stuff on the job is probably going to be better for you than getting a master's degree. The topics covered in a master's degree are still uh, very broad, I would say. You learn important topics about skin and biology and maybe even raw materials. You don't get the nitty gritty important stuff about, well, if I mix one from Steppen and this one from Henkel, and is there an interaction? Is it stable? That's the kind of practical, specific stuff that you're not going to get at a university degree area, but and and it's a lot of work. But especially if you already have a master's degree, you can learn a lot more on the job than I think you would learn in an advanced degree. Now, if you're trying to advance in your career, it's certainly going to help on your resume to not only have the experience but also have that master's degree.
So, would it be fair to say that working as a cosmetic chemist or gaining experience as a cosmetic chemist, it's really like an applied skill? Yeah. Would you agree with that
I
statement?
yeah, absolutely. It's an applied skill, but as far as advancing in your career and what does it look like to other companies, having those degrees is probably more helpful. Although I will say that what's even more helpful than having the degrees and the background is setting up that network. You know, having that first job and then start meeting people and start getting people to like you, because if you're up against somebody with a master's degree and a great pedigree, but you are personal friends with the person looking to fill the job, you've got a leg up no matter what your background is.
I'm just waiting for a couple of last questions for this before we close this webinar. But I guess before I see a few people typing in the webinar chat. So I want to ask you questions. So just get your question in soon and then I'll ask them. But before I ask those, is there anything we missed that you think would be helpful to our audience?
Sure. I think one of the most important things that you don't learn in college, but it's going to be helpful as a job in the cosmetic sciences, is learn to be a good writer. Um, Learn how to write emails that get your message out there, and they're short, and they're things that people, when they open them up, they don't dread seeing something coming from you. They want to read something, they want to get it fast. So get good at writing. Get good also at presenting. Um, in fact, you should take every opportunity that you get to present, especially when you're just starting out. Um, and that, learn how to use PowerPoint and develop some skills about presenting your topics and things that are interesting. Writing, one of the ways that I built up my career was that I started writing a column for cosmetics and toiletries, and then that turned into a book, and that led a lot of places. But you got to get good at writing, get good at giving presentations, and you can learn your chops at communicating science in sort of the way that Jen and I do. Um, that is a way to develop yourself as an expert in something. Now, one of the things that I would also suggest is that you find a topic that is of interest to you and that you become the expert in that. And so when somebody goes on Google and they say, who can talk to me about sunscreens? You should be one of the first people that you could be one of the first people that come up in Google or Twitter or YouTube, one of those. But the important thing here is actually become an expert in that. Don't be a fake expert. It's so easy to become. It's so easy to rank high in YouTube or Instagram or some other social media one where you don't really have a clue about anything, but because the people looking for that information, they have less of a clue, and so you might be the blind leading the blind, and blind people don't know it. Uh, Seriously, become an expert in something. You like surfactants, become an expert in surfactants. You like preservatives, become that expert. Get some niche and become known as the person who knows this topic, and that's going to help you a lot.
And perhaps if you become a member of the SEC, you have access to the Journal of Cosmetic Science, and then you can use that to help inform to stay on top of the latest research in the field. The next question is from Chloe. We've got a whole bunch of questions, so hopefully we can answer all of a sudden after I made that statement. So, Chloe, are
Sure,
there
sure.
opportunities to work internationally in cosmetics chemistry? I have an interest in Japanese, Korean skincare, and I think Asian companies usually require you to speak their language.
It does help, yes. But no, there absolutely is an opportunity. You probably want to work for one of the large multinationals. I know KAO. They have a facility in Cincinnati, and I know some of the chemists there have gone to Japan for stints working in their Japanese offices. So look for multinationals. Unilever is based out of the UK, but they have different companies all over the North America. And so if you get in with one of those big companies, there certainly is opportunity to work remotely in other places. Also, if you get a job as a process engineer for a company, a lot of our process engineers would travel all over the world because when you're trying to sell a product any place in the world, it's helpful to have local manufacturing. And so, if travel is one of the things you're interested in, and cosmetic chemistry is, process engineer is a great job for that. Try to
Uh,
be succinct in my answers so we get more questions. So,
well, maybe another opportunity just based off of my own experience. Obviously, I can't travel right now, and you can't really either, but having like a public platform sometimes offers you the ability to travel too. So if traveling is something you like, that could be another route.
absolutely.
This next question was from Amira, who asks, which countries have the most biggest cosmetics industries present that has a high demand for entry positions in cosmetic science?
Well,
I
I
guess,
would
what do you
say
think?
I would think probably United States is one of the uh, biggest cosmetic markets that there is. And Canada's sizable, and of course throughout the EU, the UK is one of the bigger ones. France, Italy, Germany, those are big. Um, Australia has a reasonably sized one. Brazil, Mexico. But the reality is the biggest. And can I say the reality is anymore? It's a little verbal tick I clearly have. North America is really the largest of them all. Japan is another large cosmetic industry too.
This next question is from Papi Koya, who asks, what are the good places to look for jobs? I think you might have some recommendations in the link for what you posted in Cosmetic Careers, but what do you think?
Yeah, I'd say in there for sure. There's also on Chemist Corner, we have a little click that says a little one of the tabs is jobs, and that has a listing from all of the Society of Cosmetic Chemists around, all the chapters of the SCC around North America. They will have job sections, and so on Chemist Corner, I put a link where it lists all of those other links for finding jobs. So that's an area. The SCC itself, the main one, has a job section. You can, but also searching Google, looking for jobs. LinkedIn is a great place to find potential opportunities, and even on occasion you can find stuff on Twitter where jobs are posted there too. So those would be where I would start.
Uh, One comment from Chloe, she mentioned that I live in Canada and I feel like there's so many more R&D internships in the USA and Europe. I'm also in Canada, and I'll just say I would agree that there may be more opportunities in the United States when I'm way back when I was looking for jobs, and also looking at the companies out there, and also looking at our SCC, how built up ours are, or the cosmetics industry in general is in Canada. But there are a lot of opportunities depending on where you are. In Ontario, where I'm most familiar, there are a lot of jobs around the GTA area. There's a lot of contract manufacturers. And as Perry had just mentioned, if you look to the SEC, they have job postings with their monthly newsletter. So just check that out and you'll be able to see what's available. But that concludes our webinar. Thank
Oh,
you
there we go.
so much.
All right.
For
No
everyone
problem.
for everyone watching, just so you know, I'm going to be editing this down just slightly just for the introduction, and putting it onto our Hardcore Beauty Science YouTube channel that was just created for these webinars. But I'm going to be publishing that on the webinar chat. So just look to the webinar chat probably in about 8 hours once it's actually all processed onto YouTube, and then it'll be there. If you guys have a suggestion for a future topic that you would like to see as a webinar, then just also let me know in the webinar chat and I'll take it up for consideration. Thank you, Perry. And thank you
All
for
right. Thanks,
everyone
everybody,
else.
and good luck.